The planet Orion Prime shone like a blue diamond in the middle of the galaxy. Its skies glowed with silver clouds, and the tall crystal towers reached toward the stars. From orbit, one could see the glowing rings that surrounded it, symbols of its power and beauty. This was the heart of the Orion Empire, a civilization thousands of years old known for its wisdom, peace, and technology that could bend light itself. At the center of this mighty empire ruled Queen Seraphina of Orion, a woman of grace, patience, and unshakable strength. Her voice carried across the stars, and her laws kept peace among 1,000 worlds. Yet even as the galaxy bowed before her, her heart was not at peace. She had only one child, her beloved daughter, Princess Elira. Elira was different from other Orions. While most nobles loved power and luxury, she loved adventure. She often spent nights in the royal observatory, watching the lights of distant stars through the glass dome. She dreamed of visiting those faraway worlds, of meeting new species, and of learning how others lived. "Mother," she often said, her voice gentle but full of excitement, "there must be more to life than our shining towers. There are countless worlds out there. What if they can teach us something we have forgotten?" The queen would smile sadly. "My daughter, curiosity is beautiful, but it is also dangerous. The galaxy is not as kind as you imagine. Some worlds are not ready for us, and some would harm what they do not understand." But Elira's spirit was too strong to be contained. She studied science, diplomacy, and piloting. Her teachers said she was a prodigy, brave and clever beyond her years. And one day, when she turned 20, she made a request that changed everything. She stood before the royal council, dressed in silver robes that shimmered like moonlight. "I wish to lead a mission beyond the border sectors," she said. "I will study the new species rising in the outer rim. I have heard of a world called Earth, a young planet with promise." The council murmured among themselves. The idea of a princess traveling to a primitive planet sounded absurd. But the queen, seeing the fire in her daughter's eyes, could not deny her. "Very well," the queen said softly. "You may go, but you must promise to return." Elira bowed deeply. "I promise, Mother. I will come back with knowledge that will make Orion proud." And so began her journey among the stars. The royal starship Celestara left the orbit of Orion Prime under waves of light and sound. Its hull gleamed with energy shields, and its engines glowed blue as it vanished into the deep black of space. Inside, Elira stood by the window, watching her home shrink into a single shining dot. Her heart pounded with excitement and a little fear. Her crew, made of loyal explorers and scientists, respected her deeply. She was not like other nobles. She listened, she smiled, and she worked beside them. During the long voyage, she recorded her thoughts in a digital journal. "The galaxy is vast and full of wonder. I feel like a small spark floating in endless night, but I am not afraid. Somewhere out there I will find something worth bringing home." Weeks passed. The Celestara crossed the nebula veil, where space storms glowed red and purple. Strange signals came from the darkness, but Elira remained calm. She had studied cosmic waves and navigation more than anyone else aboard. Then one night, disaster struck. Without warning, the ship's sensors screamed. A storm unlike any ever seen appeared on their path, a spiral of living energy, twisting like a hungry vortex. The ship tried to turn away, but the pull was too strong. "Shields are collapsing," shouted the navigator. "Gravity field increasing," cried another. Elira rushed to the command chair. "Hold the line! Divert all power to the stabilizers!" But it was no use. The storm consumed them. Lights flashed, metal screamed, and everything went dark. When Elira opened her eyes, she was lying on soft ground. The air was heavy and full of warmth. She could hear birds, the real birds, not holograms. Above her stretched a blue sky. She tried to sit up, groaning as pain rippled through her body. Around her lay pieces of the Celestara, broken and smoking. There were no signs of her crew. The crash had scattered everything. She was alone. She looked at the sky again. It was beautiful, so alive and bright. Then she remembered the name of the world she had seen on her maps. Earth. Days turned into weeks. Elira repaired what she could, surviving with her training and instincts. Humans found her, a small group of explorers who had come across the wreckage in a forest. At first, they thought she was some kind of survivor from an aircraft accident. But her glowing eyes and strange device on her wrist told them otherwise. They took her to a nearby town, fed her, and treated her with kindness. Elira hid her true origin at first, speaking little and learning their language. Humans were so different, simple, emotional, and yet strong in ways she had never seen before. She watched how they laughed, helped each other, and faced hardship with courage. Their cities were noisy and imperfect, but full of life. There was something deeply honest about them. One day, as she stood by a river watching children play, she realized something that changed her heart forever. These people, she thought, are not weak. They are growing. They make mistakes, they fall, but they always rise again. They fight not for power, but for love and hope. That is their strength. Illyra stayed on Earth no longer as a stranger, but as a part of it. She lived quietly under the name Illyra, teaching science and helping small communities. She never forgot her home, but she began to feel that perhaps fate had brought her here for a reason. Years passed. Illyra's life changed again when she met a kind human scientist named Daniel Hart. He was curious, gentle, and endlessly patient. Together they explored the mysteries of the universe from their small laboratory. Daniel never asked where she truly came from. He only saw the goodness in her heart. Over time, their friendship turned into something deeper, a bond built on trust and understanding. They had 2 children, Callan and Rowan. The boys had their mother's bright eyes and their father's warmth. For years, they lived a quiet life under the stars of Earth, unaware that across the galaxy an aging queen still looked up at the night sky, whispering her daughter's name. Back on Orion Prime, decades had passed. The queen had grown older, her once golden hair now silver. Her empire still thrived, but her heart was heavy. Every year she would stand at the royal balcony, gazing into the stars, hoping for a sign. The people had built a statue in memory of the lost princess, calling her Illyra the Brave. But the queen never accepted that her daughter was gone. She often said softly to herself, "Stars never die. They only hide their light until the right time." Then, one quiet morning, the Royal Control Center detected a strange signal approaching from deep space. It was small, a civilian ship, worn and old. The technicians almost ignored it until they saw the identification code flashing faintly in the data stream. Royal Gene signature, PRN IRA 01. The Queen froze when she heard. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "It cannot be. After all these years?" The message was clear, though weak. Requesting permission to land. Coming home. The Queen's heart leaped for the first time in decades. She turned toward the shining horizon of Orion Prime and whispered, "My daughter, she's coming home." Far beyond the clouds, a small ship approached, carrying a woman who once was lost, and 2 small human children holding her hands. The galaxy was about to witness the return of the lost princess of Orion. The Orion Royal Spaceport had never been so silent. Usually its halls echoed with the hum of engines and the chatter of visitors from 100 worlds. But now the grand station stood still. Every officer, every scientist, every royal guard waited at attention, their eyes fixed on the main landing bay. Above them, glowing through the transparent dome, a small silver ship descended through the atmosphere. It looked old, patched, and worn, nothing like the shining vessels of the Orion fleet. Yet everyone could see the royal symbol glowing faintly on its side, the emblem of Princess Illyra. In the royal control tower, Queen Seraphina stood beside her advisors. Her hands were clasped tightly, her eyes never leaving the view. She looked older now, her face lined with years of waiting and sorrow. But behind her calm expression was a storm of hope and fear. "Is the identification confirmed?" she asked softly. "Yes, Your Majesty," replied Captain Lorien, head of the royal security. "DNA match is perfect. It's her. It's truly the princess." The Queen closed her eyes, breathing in slowly. For years she had imagined this moment, imagined her daughter's face, her voice, her smile. Now that it was real, her heart beat faster than it had in decades. "Prepare the welcome hall," the Queen said quietly, "and send a message to the people. Tell them the lost princess has returned." The news spread like fire across the planet. From the glowing cities to the quiet countryside, screens flickered with the same message. After 30 years, Princess Illyra of Orion has returned. Crowds filled the streets. People looked up at the sky, searching for the ship that carried their long-lost princess. Some wept with joy. Some refused to believe it. To them, the princess was a legend, a story told to children. But now the legend was real. Inside the small ship, Illyra sat quietly, her 2 sons beside her. Callan, the older one, looked around with wide eyes, his small hands gripping the window edge. Rowan, the younger, pressed his face to the glass, amazed by the glowing towers and the flying crafts outside. "Is this where you grew up, Mother?" Rowan asked, his voice full of wonder. Elira smiled softly. "Yes, my dear. This is Orion Prime, my home." Callan tilted his head. "It looks like the stories you told us, but everyone is staring." "They are surprised," Elira said kindly. "They never thought they would see me again." Her heart tightened. She had dreamed of returning home so many times, but now that it was happening, she felt nervous. The years on Earth had changed her. She no longer looked like a perfect royal. Her clothes were simple, her hair longer, and her skin carried the warmth of sunlight. And her children, half human, were unlike anyone in the Empire. Would her people accept them? The ship touched down with a soft hiss. The ramp extended slowly, and a warm golden light flooded the landing bay. Dozens of guards stood in perfect lines. Scientists, nobles, and reporters waited behind a shining barrier. At the far end stood Queen Seraphina, wearing her silver crown and royal robe. Her eyes were wet but bright. The air was tense. Every camera was turned toward the ramp. The world seemed to hold its breath. And then she appeared. Princess Elira stepped out of the ship, her long silver cloak fluttering behind her. The people gasped. She looked older, wiser, and yet still carried the same gentle grace that everyone remembered. But what shocked them most were the two small children walking beside her, each holding one of her hands. Their hair was dark like night, and their eyes shone with human warmth. They looked around curiously, smiling at the crowd, unaware of the weight of history unfolding around them. For a moment, silence ruled the air. Then slowly, the Queen began to walk forward. Her steps were trembling at first, but then stronger with every pace. The guards lowered their heads in respect. Elira's eyes filled with tears as she met her mother halfway across the landing bay. When they stood face to face, neither spoke for a long moment. The Queen reached out her hands, touching her daughter's face gently, as if afraid she might disappear again. "My child," the Queen whispered, her voice breaking. "You came back to me." Elira smiled through her tears. "I promised I would." The Queen pulled her into an embrace, holding her tightly as the galaxy watched. The people who saw this moment through their screens wept openly. It was the reunion they had prayed for but never thought possible. After a while, the Queen looked down and saw the two children standing beside them. Callan bowed shyly, and Rowan gave a nervous smile. "And who are these brave little ones?" the Queen asked softly. Elira knelt beside her sons. "Mother, these are my children, Callan and Rowan. They were born on a world called Earth." The Queen blinked, taken by surprise. "Earth?" she repeated slowly. "Yes," Elira said gently. "A human world." A whisper spread through the crowd. Some people gasped, some frowned, and others exchanged uncertain looks. The idea of royal blood mixed with a young, lesser-known species was unheard of in Orion history. But the Queen silenced them all with a raised hand. She looked at the children again. Their eyes were filled with innocence and curiosity. No fear, no pride, just simple kindness. The Queen smiled warmly and knelt down, meeting them at eye level. "Welcome home, little ones," she said softly. "You are family." Callan's face brightened. Rowan grinned and said, "Thank you, grandmother." The Queen's heart melted at the word. She gently hugged them both, and the crowd burst into applause. Across the Empire, people cheered, moved by the Queen's acceptance. That night, the royal palace of Orion shone brighter than ever. The great halls were decorated with banners, and music echoed through the city. People celebrated the return of their princess. But inside the palace, not everyone celebrated. In the High Council chamber, a group of nobles gathered in silence. Among them was Lord Varesh, a tall man with sharp eyes and silver armor. He had long desired the throne for himself, believing that the royal bloodline had grown weak. "She has returned with human offspring," he said coldly, his voice echoing through the hall. "This is an insult to our heritage." The Queen is blinded by emotion. The people cheer now, but soon they will see the truth. Her daughter no longer belongs to us. A counselor beside him hesitated. "But she is the rightful heir. The people love her already." Varesh turned his gaze toward the window, watching the lights of the celebration below. "Love fades. Fear lasts longer. Let them cheer tonight. Tomorrow they will question her. And when they do, I will be ready." Meanwhile, in her old royal chamber, Elira stood by the balcony looking at the twin moons above the horizon. Kaelin and Rowan slept peacefully in the room behind her. Her mother entered quietly, carrying 2 crystal cups. "You always loved watching the moons," the Queen said softly. Elira smiled. "Yes, they're still as beautiful as I remember." They stood side by side for a long moment. Then the Queen said, "Your return has brought joy to my heart, but it will also bring questions. The Council will demand explanations." "I know," Elira replied, "but I am not afraid. I will tell them the truth." The Queen studied her daughter's face. "You have changed," Elira nodded slowly. "Earth changed me. Humans taught me what it means to fight for love and to live with purpose. They are not as advanced as us, but their hearts are strong, stronger than any energy crystal or machine." The Queen smiled faintly. "Perhaps we have much to learn from them." Later that night, Elira knelt beside her children's beds. Kaelin stirred and opened his eyes. "Mom, are we safe here?" He whispered. "Yes, my dear," Elira said softly, brushing his hair. "This is our home. We are safe. But will they like us?" he asked quietly. Elira smiled gently. "They will learn to, just as I did." She kissed his forehead and whispered, "You are a bridge between 2 worlds. Never be ashamed of who you are." Callan smiled sleepily and closed his eyes again. Elira stood by the window watching the stars twinkle outside. Somewhere among them was Earth, the place that had given her love, family, and the strength to return. She placed a hand over her heart and whispered, "Tomorrow will be hard, but we will face it together." Outside, the twin moons glowed softly, lighting the royal palace like a promise. The Princess of Orion had returned, and with her came the dawn of a new story, one that would test the courage of an empire and the spirit of humanity itself. The next morning, the royal city of Orion Prime awoke to a new dawn. News of the princess's return had reached every corner of the empire. In every city, people celebrated her homecoming. Streets were filled with music, and screens across the world showed her image. Princess Elira, the lost heir who had returned after decades, holding the hands of her 2 human children. Yet, inside the shining towers of the royal palace, the atmosphere was not joyful. It was tense and quiet. Whispers filled the halls like invisible smoke. Servants bowed low as they passed, but behind their respectful gestures, many whispered among themselves. Some were filled with admiration, others with doubt. Could a princess who had lived among humans still be one of them? In the great chamber of the High Council of Orion, 12 nobles sat around a glowing table of crystal light. Their long robes shimmered with different symbols representing their worlds and families. At the head of the table sat Queen Seraphina, her face calm but firm. Beside her stood Princess Elira, graceful and silent, and her 2 sons, Callan and Rowan, waiting quietly. At the far end of the table sat Lord Varesh, the most powerful counselor in the room after the Queen. His sharp silver eyes watched Elira carefully, studying her every move. His voice when he spoke was polite but cold. "Your Majesty," he said slowly, "we welcome your daughter's return, but as guardians of the Empire we must ask, where has she been all these years? And what has she become?" The Queen looked at him calmly. "You will hear her story, Lord Varesh, as I have." "Let her speak." Elira took a deep breath and stepped forward. Her voice was gentle but strong. 30 years ago I left Orion to explore the outer systems. My ship was caught in an energy storm and crashed on a small blue world called Earth. "Earth?" one of the counselors repeated, frowning. "The human planet?" "Yes," Elira said. "The humans saved me when I had no one. They cared for me, taught me their ways, and gave me a new home." She paused, her eyes moving from one counselor to another. "I lived among them not as a princess but as a teacher and explorer. I saw their courage, their kindness, and their spirit. They may not have our technology, but their hearts are strong. They dream big and never give up, even when everything seems lost." A few counselors nodded quietly, but others exchanged uneasy looks. Lord Varesh leaned forward, his expression sharp. "And during this time, you married one of them?" Elira's eyes softened, though her tone remained steady. "I found love on Earth. My husband was a man of great wisdom and compassion. He is gone now, but he left me with the greatest gift, my children." The 2 boys stood straight beside her. Kaelin bowed politely while Rowan waved shyly. Some of the counselors smiled. Others frowned. Lord Varesh clasped his hands. "Your words are moving, Princess, but you understand what this means. The royal bloodline of Orion has been mixed with an alien species. one far below our level of evolution." The queen's eyes flashed with warning. "Watch your words, Varesh," he bowed slightly. "I only speak with concern, Your Majesty. The people look to this court for guidance. If the royal family accepts humans as equals, what message does that send? Will the empire not question its own strength?" Illyra looked directly at him. "If our strength is so fragile that it breaks when faced with kindness, then perhaps we were never strong at all." The chamber fell silent. Even Lord Varesh had no reply at first. The queen hid a small smile behind her calm face. That night, Illyra walked through the royal gardens with her mother. The twin moons shone brightly above them, and the air was filled with the scent of crystal flowers. Kellen and Rowan ran ahead, laughing and chasing the glowing insects that danced around the fountains. "They remind me of you when you were little," the queen said softly, "always chasing the light." Illyra smiled, watching her sons. "They are full of wonder. Earth taught me that even in simple things there is beauty." The queen nodded slowly. "You spoke well today, but the council is not easily swayed. Varesh has power. He will not stop," Illyra sighed. "I know he fears change. He sees humans as a threat." The queen touched her daughter's hand. "Then show him that they are not. Let the people see who you are, not through speeches but through deeds." Illyra nodded with determination. "I will, Mother." Over the next few weeks, the palace began to change. The once quiet halls now echoed with laughter as Callan and Rowan explored every corner. The staff grew fond of them, especially when the boys helped the gardeners or played music for the kitchen staff. Rowan often ran to the queen's chamber to tell her stories about Earth, about oceans, rain, and animals that did not exist on Orion. The queen listened with joy, her heart lightened by their presence. But not everyone was pleased. In the shadows of the palace, Lord Varesh met secretly with his followers. He stood before a holographic map of the empire, his voice low and dangerous. "The queen is blinded by emotion," he said. "The people cheer for the princess now, but soon they will see her for what she is, a stranger among us. We will remind them that purity of blood keeps the empire strong. Humans are unpredictable, unstable, and weak." One of his allies asked quietly, "What if the queen stands in our way?" Varesh's eyes narrowed. "Then we will make the people doubt her too." A few days later, a grand ceremony was held in the Hall of Light, a place where Orion's greatest discoveries were displayed. Illyra had been invited to speak about her time on Earth, and the event was broadcast across the empire. As she stood on the stage, the crowd of nobles and citizens watched curiously. Callan and Rowan sat proudly in the front row beside their grandmother. Illyra spoke about Earth's history, how humans had faced countless wars, disasters and challenges, yet always rebuilt themselves stronger than before. She spoke of their creativity, their art, their compassion for each other. "Humans taught me that strength is not in perfection," she said, her voice echoing through the hall, "but in the courage to keep going, even when everything is broken." The crowd was silent for a moment, and then applause filled the air. Many were moved, some even inspired. But Lord Varesh, watching from the balcony, only smiled coldly. He pressed a small device hidden under his cloak. Suddenly, alarms blared across the hall. The lights flickered. A glowing energy core at the center of the room began to spark violently. The crowd panicked as guards rushed forward. "Get back!" shouted a technician. "The core is overheating!" Without thinking, Rowan jumped up from his seat and ran toward the stage. "Mom, the energy link. It's still active," he shouted. "Rowan, no!" Illyra cried, running after him. But the boy had already reached the control panel. His small fingers moved quickly, disconnecting the unstable conduits he had seen glowing red. Callan ran to help him using his small tool, a human-made device Illyra had brought from Earth. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the air. Everyone watched in disbelief as the two children worked together fearlessly. Then, the core stabilized. The lights returned. Silence filled the room once again. A moment later, the crowd erupted into cheers. Illyra hugged her sons tightly as the queen ran forward, tears in her eyes. "They saved us," she whispered. Those children saved everyone. The story spread across the empire like wildfire. News channels played the recording. Again and again, the moment two human boys saved the royal court with bravery and quick thinking. People who once doubted them now looked at humans with new respect. But Lord Varesh was furious. His plan to create chaos had failed, and instead, it had made Illyra and her children heroes. He stood alone in his dark chamber, his face hard as stone. They are clever, he said to himself. Too clever. If the people begin to love them, then I must act before it's too late. He turned toward his communicator. Prepare the next step. The time for whispers is over. If words cannot divide them, perhaps fear will. That night, as the city celebrated the bravery of the young half-humans, Elira stood once again on her balcony. The stars shimmered above like scattered jewels. Kaelin and Rowan leaned on the railing beside her, their eyes full of wonder. Do you think they will ever like us, Mom? Rowan asked. Elira smiled softly. Some already do. Others will take time. But kindness and courage always win in the end. She looked out at the glowing city, her home, her mother's world, and whispered, They will see the truth soon. Humanity is not weak. It is beautiful. Far below, unseen by anyone, shadows moved in the streets. Varesh's followers were preparing something that would test that truth sooner than she imagined. The twin suns of Orion Prime rose over the crystal towers, painting the city in gold and silver. For a few days, peace had returned to the Empire. Citizens celebrated the return of Princess Elira and her human-born children. Streets hummed with excitement, and stories of the boys' bravery spread across the Empire. But in the far reaches of space, beyond the edge of Orion sensors, dark shapes moved silently. The Velthar Dominion, a long-forgotten race thought extinct, had returned. Their ships were sleek and deadly, powered by ancient technology capable of piercing the shields of the most advanced Orion vessels. Lord Varesh, still seething from his failed attempts to undermine Elira, had secretly contacted the Dominion. He believed that fear would return control to him. He had promised them access to Orion's inner systems in exchange for chaos. Now the ships emerged from the shadows, heading straight for the royal capital. Inside the palace, Elira sensed the danger first. She was in the royal study with the Queen, reviewing her notes about Earth's energy systems. Mother, something is wrong, she said suddenly, her eyes narrowing at the star maps. The outer sensors show unknown ships. They're moving fast, and they're not Orion, the Queen frowned. Could it be a scouting fleet? Elira shook her head. No, these ships are too large and too coordinated. They're coming to attack. Within minutes, alarms echoed through the palace. Red lights flashed. The city's defense systems roared to life. Soldiers ran to their stations. Citizens fled to secure zones. The sky above the capital darkened as the Velthar ships appeared in formation, their weapons glowing a harsh blue. The Orion defense fleet scrambled. Hundreds of starships, sleek and powerful, rushed to intercept the invaders. But the Velthar Dominion was prepared. They bypassed the main fleet with high-speed maneuvers and struck the city's outer defenses with precision. Explosions lit the skies and buildings shook. In the chaos, the Queen turned to Elira. You must leave the palace. Take the children to the control room. Keep them safe. No, Elira replied firmly. I will not abandon my home. But we will fight differently. Mother, give me access to the energy grid. The Queen nodded, trusting her daughter completely. Do what you must, my child. Elira led Kaelin and Rowan to the main control chamber. The room was a hive of activity, officers shouting, engineers typing frantically, and holographic displays showing the Velthar ships moving closer. Mom, what do we do? Kaelin asked, fear in his young voice. Elira knelt to his level. We use what Earth taught us. Humans can solve problems Orions would never think of. Rowan, Kaelin, you can help me. The boys' eyes widened, but they nodded. Elira handed them simple tools, devices from Earth she had kept in her possession. Sometimes the smallest things make the biggest difference, she said. Together they studied the Velthar ship's patterns. Orion generals focused on strict protocols, forming shields, attacking in perfect formations. But Elira noticed something they had missed. The Dominion relied on precise timing. If the timing was broken, their ships would lose coordination. She whispered instructions to her sons. Rowan, redirect the energy pulse to the outer grid. Kaelin, adjust the stabilizers to create small bursts in sequence. The boys worked quickly, their hands moving with surprising speed and skill. Sparks flew and the lights flickered, but Elira stayed calm. Trust yourself, she said. We can do this. Outside, the Velthar fleet fired energy beams at the city. The Orion shields absorbed most, but some buildings began to crumble. Soldiers shouted in panic. It seemed impossible that the small control chamber could turn the tide. But then the first disruption occurred. The pulses created by Elira and her sons caused confusion in the enemy fleet. Weapons fired too early or too late. Ships collided and their formation broke. "Keep going," Elira shouted, moving to adjust the main conduits. "Almost there," the boys responded with courage. Rowan twisted the final knob and Callan rerouted the remaining power. Suddenly, the entire Dominion fleet experienced a massive system glitch. Their shields collapsed, weapons misfired, and panic spread among their ranks. Orion pilots seized the moment. They launched a coordinated counterattack, striking the Velthar ships with precision. One by one, the invaders were forced to retreat, their fleet scattering across the galaxy. In the aftermath, the city was damaged, but Orion had survived. Citizens poured into the streets cheering. Soldiers saluted the royal family, now more than ever inspired by their leadership. Elira hugged her sons tightly. "You were amazing," she whispered. "You saved everyone." Callan and Rowan looked at her shyly. "We just did what you taught us, Mom," Rowan said softly. The Queen approached, tears in her eyes. "You have shown us all something Orion forgot," she said. "Courage is not measured by power or perfection, but by heart. Your children, and you, my daughter, remind us what it truly means to be strong." Lord Varesh watched from his hidden chamber as the news came in. His face was pale with anger. His plans to use fear and chaos had failed, and now the people celebrated Elira and her human-born children as heroes. He slammed his fist against the table. "No, this cannot be. Humans, the children, they are supposed to be weak." "This is impossible," one of his followers whispered. Perhaps the Queen has finally realized the truth." Varesh's eyes narrowed. "No one tells me the truth. I will not be defeated by children and aliens. We will see. The next time, we will strike harder." In the royal palace, Elira walked through the halls after the battle, her sons holding her hands. Soldiers and citizens stopped to bow and smile. Children waved at Callan and Rowan, inspired by their bravery. "Look, Mom," Callan said, pointing to a mural being painted in the main square. "It's us saving the city." Elira smiled. "Yes, my brave ones. This will be remembered for generations." Rowan tilted his head. "Do you think humans and Orions can really be friends, Mom?" Elira looked up at the stars through the crystal ceiling. "Not just friends, partners, allies. Together we can make something stronger than either alone. That is what I learned on Earth." The Queen joined them, placing her hands gently on Elira's shoulders. "You were lost, my child, but you returned with wisdom that none of us could have imagined. The Empire will never be the same because of you." Elira's eyes glistened. "I only did what I had to do. Humans taught me hope, Mother, and hope can save worlds." As night fell over Orion Prime, the city began rebuilding, but the hearts of its people were changed forever. Stories of the princess and her human children spread throughout the Empire. They were no longer a curiosity or a threat. They were a symbol of courage, love, and the power of learning from others. Even in the council chambers, some nobles quietly acknowledged the truth. Strength was not in perfection or ancient tradition. It was in courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. And far above the planet, the twin moons glimmered like silver guardians, reflecting the new hope of an empire that had been reminded what it truly meant to be strong. The aftermath of the Velthar attack left Orion Prime in a state of careful rebuilding. The sky above the city glimmered with repair drones, and the streets were crowded with engineers and volunteers repairing shattered towers. Citizens moved with renewed purpose, inspired by the bravery of Princess Elira and her two human-born children, Callan and Rowan. The royal palace, though damaged, became a center for hope. Every day, Elira walked the halls holding her children's hands, meeting soldiers, engineers, and citizens. Wherever she went, people bowed, not only out of respect but out of genuine admiration. She no longer appeared just as the lost princess. She was a bridge between worlds. Inside the palace, Queen Seraphina convened a meeting of the High Council. After the Velthar attack, opinions had begun to change. Even Lord Varesh, who had once been the fiercest critic of Elira and her children, sat silently at the table, his face grim. The Queen spoke, her voice calm but commanding. "We have witnessed courage beyond what any of us imagined. Humans, despite their differences from us, have shown wisdom, creativity, and bravery. My daughter and her children have proven that strength is not just in our technology or lineage, but in the heart and spirit." Elira stepped forward. "Mother, The people must see that cooperation makes us stronger. Humans may seem simple, but their courage is unparalleled. Their willingness to act even without perfect preparation saved our empire. Some counselors nodded slowly, while others exchanged uncertain glances. Lord Varesh finally spoke. And what of tradition? The royal bloodline? What if this connection to humans weakens us? The Queen's eyes flashed. Strength is not in isolation, Varesh. It is in unity. If we fear the unknown, we will remain weak. But if we embrace courage and learning, our empire will thrive. A murmur of agreement swept through the chamber. Varesh's words had lost their power in the face of truth. That afternoon, Elira and her sons visited the Central Academy of Orion. It was a place where young Orions studied science, strategy, and diplomacy. Elira wanted the next generation to understand that knowledge and courage came in many forms. Callan and Rowan were curious everywhere they went. They examined crystal computers, practiced maneuvers in zero-gravity simulators, and even taught students small human inventions that could simplify complex tasks. The students were amazed. They had always been told that Orions were the pinnacle of intelligence, yet here were two human children, small, seemingly ordinary, yet capable of insight and bravery beyond anyone's expectation. One young student whispered to another, "Maybe humans are not so weak after all." Rowan overheard and grinned. "We're not just humans. We're us." Elira laughed softly, realizing that these children were already inspiring change. Meanwhile, Lord Varesh retreated to his private chambers. His influence had weakened and the council no longer feared him. Yet he was not defeated entirely. He knew the princess had returned stronger, wiser, and with allies who had proven themselves during the Velthar attack. He stared out at the repaired towers and muttered, "They may celebrate now, but tradition will always find a way." Even as he plotted quietly, it was clear that his era of power had passed. The empire now looked to unity and courage, not fear and control. Weeks later, the Queen organized a grand ceremony in the palace courtyard. Citizens, scholars, soldiers, and nobles gathered to honor the return of the lost princess and her human children. The twin moons rose above the palace, casting silver light across the assembled crowd. Elira stood beside the Queen, holding the hands of Callan and Rowan. The children, once shy and uncertain in this strange world, now stood confidently, proud to be recognized for their courage and wisdom. The Queen raised her hands to quiet the crowd. "Today we celebrate not only the return of my daughter, but also the courage of two remarkable children, who have shown us that heroism and strength are not measured by birth or origin. Callan and Rowan have taught us that courage can come from anywhere, and that unity can overcome the greatest threats." The crowd erupted into cheers. The children's eyes shone and Elira's heart swelled with pride. After the ceremony, the Queen and Elira spoke privately. "You have changed the empire," the Queen said softly. "You have reminded us that fear is not strength and that courage, even in small hands, can shape the future." Elira nodded. "Mother, humans taught me hope. That hope is what saved us all. I will continue to teach it to our people." The Queen smiled. "Then we are ready for a new dawn. With you, your children, and the people united, Orion will shine brighter than ever." Over the next months, the Empire began a remarkable transformation. Earth and Orion Prime formed the Unity of Hearts, a program to share knowledge, technology, and culture. Scientists from both worlds worked together, combining Orion energy systems with human ingenuity. Callan and Rowan became symbols of hope and unity. Schools across the Empire taught stories of their bravery. Children drew murals of the boys saving the city, just as Rowan had once saved the Energy Corps. Citizens who once doubted humans now saw them as partners, equals in courage and intelligence. Even Lord Varesh, though still scheming quietly in the shadows, had to admit that the future had shifted. The people no longer followed fear. They followed courage, wisdom, and love. Elira often took her sons to the palace observatory. Together, they watched the stars beyond the twin moons. Callan asked questions about distant galaxies, while Rowan imagined adventures on uncharted worlds. "Do you think humans and Orions can explore the stars together?" Callan asked. Elira smiled. "We already are, and one day we will go farther than anyone has ever gone. Together." Rowan's eyes sparkled. "I want to see Earth from space, Mom, and maybe other worlds too." Elira laughed, hugging both boys. "Then we will see them all. But remember, courage, kindness, and curiosity will guide us more than technology ever can. The Queen joined them at the observatory, placing a gentle hand on Elira's shoulder. You were never lost, my child. You simply found what we had forgotten. Elira looked up at her mother, then at the boys holding her hands. And now we bring it back to everyone. Across the Empire, Orion citizens began to embrace this new era. Ships traveled to Earth, exchanging knowledge, art, and culture. Humans taught Orion simple but effective ideas that changed industry and daily life. Orions taught humans about advanced energy, space travel, and diplomacy. Together, the two worlds learned that diversity was their greatest strength. The legends of the lost Princess of Orion no longer focused on her disappearance. They focused on her return, her courage, and the human children who held the hands of an entire empire. Callan and Rowan grew up as symbols of unity. Stories of their bravery inspired every Orion child to look beyond fear and learn from others. Schools taught Orion students about Earth's history, innovation, and the human spirit. The empire became stronger, not through isolation or tradition, but through collaboration, courage, and hope. Years later, as Elira stood on the balcony of the fully restored palace, the city glowing under the twin moons, she held Callan and Rowan by their hands. Citizens passed below, smiling, waving, and greeting them warmly. The Queen approached, her hair silver but her eyes bright with joy. You have done what I thought impossible, she said. You have united two worlds, reminded us of courage, and brought hope back to the galaxy. Elira smiled. I only did what Earth taught me. Courage, love, and hope are the strongest powers there are. And now, we share them with the Empire. The boys looked up at the stars. Mom, Rowan said, what's next? Elira knelt beside them. Next we explore. Next we learn. Next we show the galaxy what can happen when humans and Orions work together. The Queen joined them, placing her hands over theirs, and we will do it together. This is our new dawn, a dawn of unity, courage, and hope. As the twin moons glimmered above, the palace radiated not only light, but the promise of a future shaped by hearts brave enough to act. Elira, her children, and the Queen stood together, holding hands, and looked out at the stars. The lost Princess of Orion had returned, and with her, a new era of strength, unity, and hope. The galaxy would never be the same,